Hello everybody, and welcome to my second ever album ranking video. Today, I'll be ranking quite possibly the greatest band of all time, the Beatles. I have quite a history with listening to the Beatles. For 2 years, starting my freshman year of high school, they were the only band I listened to. I was absolutely obsessed with them, and I think that is safe to say for many people. If you've listened to music or if you dive deep into any sort of music at one point or another, you've had a Beatles phase. Admit it, we've all had a Beatles phase. Mine lasted for 2.5 years. Sadly, I was only able to acquire 2 albums. They are quite hard to find unless they are the remastered versions. And at the time, I wasn't as big of an album collector as I am now. I have like 3 hoodies, like 2 shirts, and right over, I don't know if you can see over here, I have a huge freaking poster. It takes up like literally all of the wall. But anyways, getting to the actual ranking, let me explain to you what my thinking behind all of these ranks. Spiritual revelation. Basically, there are some Beatles albums that literally just, you listen to them and you just ascend. Basically, you literally just ascend. Beatlemania, because it's freaking fantastic. Amazing, great, and solid, because let's be real, there is no bad Beatles album. They might not be as strong as the others, but there is no bad Beatles album. They are freaking, probably some of the best musicians, at least some of the best musicians of the 20th century, let alone maybe all time. Is that controversial? I don't know. Let's start off with 1963, I think. Please Please Me. The way I'm going to be talking about these albums is maybe some little fun facts, stuff about the writing, because I think the writing is very important as to understand who has been writing, and then what kind of influences that brings, because all 4 of them bring something different to the table. And just talking about the music and then the actual rankings of like how they were on the charts, I think that's very important. So let's start with Please Please Me. The cover shot, as you can see, it's very iconic cover shot. Maybe I can put a version of it below me so you can see it more up close, because it is pretty interesting. Was shot at EMI Studios headquarters in London, and yeah, they shot it at the place, and it's very, very cool. This album has a lot of covers from either Motown or more 50s doo-wop-y kinds of stuff. But when they did write, it was exclusively Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Please Please Me, the title track, was exclusively written by John Lennon. And overall, this was number one in England and number 2 in the United States. Not bad for a first album. If I could create a band and become number 2 in the United States first go around, I would retire. That would be my claim to fame. I'd be like, hey, I got number 2. But they kept going, and well, we know how it goes from there. I would say this is a great album. My personal favorites are I Saw Her Standing There and There's a Place. I think those songs are freaking crazy, especially I Saw Her Standing There. Paul McCartney has this insane bass line. Like, I do play some bass, and I have tried to play it before, and I'm not at that level yet, especially while singing. Like that, he is cut from a different cloth, that's for sure. He is crazy. Also, Love Me Do and Do You Want to Know a Secret. Other very notable songs on that album. Very good. I think it's great. I wouldn't say it's anything too crazy. My one issue with this album is the harmonica. This is just personal preference, but I hate the harmonica. Do not add harmonica to your song. And I blame that on Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan made that cool. It's not cool. It's not funny. It's not quirky. I don't like the harmonica. But that's just me. Then moving on to the second album with the Beatles. Right here. I'm just going to place it here just so you can see it. This whole album was recorded in 7 days. Not consecutive days, but it was recorded just in 7 days. That's crazy. Because I think there's 14 songs on this album, something like that. There are covers. There is a lot of original stuff on there too, and that's crazy. George Harrison writes on this album, "Don't Bother Me," which I think is a great track. This was the number 1 album in the UK and Germany. And my personal favorites on this album are Hold Me Tight, All My Lovin', and It Won't Be Long. all original songs, and they're crazy good. Like you can start to hear them getting to their British invasion, their Beatlemania sound, really. They're really getting there with this, especially those. You can tell the inspiration from previous decades, and from their personal inspirations that they have talked about, like Roy Orbison, Chuck Berry, especially Chuck Berry. As the early stuff, very, very Chuck Berry. And a personal note that I think is very cool is that they do a cover of Till There Was You, a song from the musical, The Music Man. Wonderful cover. Paul McCartney is fantastic on it, and I love that musical. So it is really, it's the best of both worlds for me. Devil in Her Heart, Mr. Postman, and I Want to Be Your Man. Fantastic tracks. Like almost every single track on this, that gives me a Beatlemania. Honestly, like it's one of my personal favorite albums. I'm ranking these on my own opinion, but also where I think it is the most important albums and different things. So it is mostly my opinion, but I have to put my opinion aside at some points to be like, listen, these albums are insane. And we'll get to that later. And another thing that I want to mention, in 1964, I think it's very important to mention the British invasion, as I mentioned before. Them getting on the Ed Sullivan Show in February 1964. And at that point, which I don't know if anyone could ever do this ever again, but they held all 5 of the top 5 in the Billboard Top 100 charts in the United States. The top 5, all the Beatles. Plus, I think they had like 5 or 6 songs throughout the top 100 as well. So they held like 10 spots in the top 100, 5 of them being the top 5. I don't think anyone could ever do that again. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I just don't think that can happen again. They are insane. So coming out of the British invasion comes Hard Day's Night. The title comes from Ringo. He's just a crazy dude. He just comes up with these random things, says these random things. He just walks in one day, but it's been a hard day's night, mates, or something. I don't know. And they're like, album, this is it. This is the first album with completely original Lennon-McCartney material. Number 1 in the US and the UK. My favorites are I'll Be Back, Tell Me Why. It's really hard to choose because literally every song on this album is gold. Can't Buy Me Love, When I Get Home, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. Freaking, like, if I could write one of them, again, claim to fame. But that is just that is literally, is it the epitome of Beatlemania? I think so. It literally was Beatlemania. And I have to mention the movie, A Hard Day's Night. If you haven't seen the Beatles movies, they're funny. They're great. They're fun little romps just to watch for a while, especially if you love the Beatles. We'll get to their other movies later, but Hard Day's Night was their first crack at a movie, and I think it's pretty good. The next album, Beatles for Sale. George Martin has gone on record to call this an unmemorable album. I would disagree with that. I don't think it's unmemorable. I wouldn't say it's their best. I wouldn't call it their best. As you can see, I don't know if I can zoom in on this album or show you this album art closer, because you can just tell that they're just tired. They've been touring hundreds and hundreds of live shows, going on television shows, going literally all over the world. I'd be tired too. And you can just tell in the album art that they're pretty tired, which understandable, but that still doesn't stop them from having wonderful songs on this. Like 8 Days a Week, Every Little Thing, What You're Doing. My personal favorites being Kansas City and I'll Follow the Sun. I think they're wonderful little songs. From this album, you can kind of hear the different writing styles coming to play a little bit. I personally am a huge fan of Paul McCartney. A huge inspiration of mine. So I really like his writing style, and you can hear that in this one. I say this album's great. I don't think it's as good as Please Please Me, personally, but I think it's great. It's a great album, but as I said, even if it's in the bottom tier, it's not bad. It's not bad, but I don't think it's the best that they've ever done. Moving on to, where is it? Help. Originally called Beatles 2. I found that out recently doing some research, and I think I don't know, I like that name. Help, I think, is more iconic, but Beatles 2, it's nice. George writes on this album, and he kind of helps out with some things, and I think that's really cool. I like hearing, like, Lennon-McCartney writing team is an unstoppable powerhouse, but hearing George Harrison come in is also a welcome addition, because I think he's a wonderful musician. This was number 1 in the UK and the US, and I think came out of this is some very, very iconic songs, Yesterday and Help. Wonderful, wonderful pieces that I think, if you know music, you know this. If you know music, obviously you know the Beatles. If you don't, what are you doing? What are you doing? My personal favorites are The Night Before and Help, because those are just great songs. Obviously, Yesterday, Ticket to Ride, and I Need You. Also very, very great tracks. And then the movie, Help, the movie. It is very Monty Python, and I think they even go on record to say that that was like an inspiration for that movie. It's just funny. I don't even remember what it was. It was just kind of wacky and weird, but I want to watch it again now that I say that. I think I probably will watch it again very soon. I don't know where I'd put it. I think I'd put it as amazing. I don't think it's as good as these two. Obviously, I'll rearrange in the end. But here comes one of my personal favorites. I think this would be one of my personal favorites, considering I went out of my way to buy the album itself. This is a very new direction for the band, but as I have researched, this album was rushed for Christmas time, so they had to throw in some old songs that they wrote years back. The most notable, I think Michelle is on this album. Is it on this album? That they had to throw that in, and Paul wrote it in like 1959 or something, and they're like, "Yep, throw it on there." Personally, I think it's a spiritual revelation. Like, genuinely, this is the. It was number 1 in the US, UK, Germany, and Australia. Ringo gets credited on a song. He throws his hat in the ring. One of, if not one of my favorite albums, George writing "Think for Yourself." Great song. I cannot pick any favorites on this one, because just listen to the list of how many songs are on this. Norwegian Wood, You Won't See Me, Think for Yourself, I'm Looking Through You, Wait, and I think The Word is also on this. All of them are so good. It's in a top spot for me. It's really in a top spot for me. Next up, Revolver. I think the album art is wonderful on this. I think the album art is pretty good on all of these, specifically these two. And moving forward, I think they're all great. This marks a new era for the Beatles, a bit more experimental, not as much as the next album after this, but it got number 1 in the US, UK, Germany, Australia, Norway, and Sweden. Safe to say that the Beatlemania is still as strong as ever. The album as a whole is it's great. It's a great album with some really amazing tracks. I don't think the full thing in total is the best in the whole wide world, but highlights being "And Your Bird Can Sing" and "Here, There, and Everywhere." Fun fact about "Here, There, and Everywhere," Paul wrote it in like an hour while John was asleep while he was waiting at his house. I think he was at the pool. I think, is that a memory that I have of researching that? Maybe. But again, Paul McCartney, just insane. Other really great songs on this: "Good Day Sunshine," "Taxman," and "Got to Get You Into My Life." Great songs. John Lennon contributes a little less in this album, and a lot more of George. And I love him, and I think he's a great writer. And at this point, they're starting to tour a lot less as a group. I think it's an amazing album. Would I put it above Help? I don't know. I'll think about that. We'll put that in the old memory banks. We'll see what goes on there. But yeah, great overall, great album. Now, coming to what people have called, and I found this very interesting when I was looking up Sgt Pepper, was that the Rolling Stone magazine called this the number 1 album of all time at one point. I think it was 2003 or so, or something like that. It won 4 Grammys. It was number 1 literally everywhere. And it was a new direction. I think it's great. I have a Sgt Pepper mug. Has on the other side. I drink tea out of this every morning. I love this mug, and I love this album. My favorite songs are title track, Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and Fixing a Hole. Great songs. Fixing a Hole is a fantastic piece. Paul McCartney does his magic yet again. Help from My Friends, with a little help from my friends, She's Leaving Home, When I'm 64, and Lovely Rita, all notable tracks. I think it's just overall an important album to music history. I really do think so. The Beatles were tired of being the Beatles and just kind of threw alter egos in there to have some fun. And I think it's a really important album. I wouldn't say I like it as much as these other two, but it's definitely fantastic album. Moving right along, Magical Mystery Tour. So they went from weird to weird. They went from that's kind of weird to oh, that's kind of weird. This whole thing was Paul's idea, or at least half of it was. This was actually a TV special with the same name, Magical Mystery Tour. They wanted to do something with some normal people going on a magical mystery tour. And so because they wanted to, I guess, they made it. This is the soundtrack of the TV special. This hit number 1 on the charts in the United States, but like, I think it was like 34 in England. So it wasn't received super well worldwide, but it wasn't America, I guess. At this point, you can really hear the distinct writing styles. Again, with Paul, my favorite. This is really where you can hear them diverging. Magical Mystery Tour and Fool on a Hill are my favorites out of this. But there's also Penny Lane, Hello, Goodbye, All You Need Is Love. Another interesting fact about this is the song Flying. All 4 of them are credited for writing on that song, which I think is cool. I don't know. I just thought that was cool. I think it's a good album. I love Magical Mystery Tour and Fool on a Hill. I think they're great songs. It's either the top of great or the bottom of amazing. I'll put it in amazing. I might rearrange that later, but we'll see. Moving right along to, did I say that again? Moving right along, the White Album. With this album, apparently, as I researched, tensions were rising, and Ringo actually walked out of the studio. Walked out of the group for 2 weeks. Just like, nope, I'll see you later, loves, and just walked out. So this is just so many number 1s with this one. US, UK, I think like probably Germany and Sweden and Norway or whatever. There are 30 songs on this album. It is just insane. First of all, let me just say it is a spiritual revelation. It is like Jesus. Oh my God. I have too many favorites. It's hard to name any because there's 30 songs on the album. So it's like, what do you do? What do you say? There's so many. Just to name a few. Martha, My Dear, I Will, Dear Prudence, Why Don't We Do It in the Road, Glass Onion, Back in the USSR, Obla Di Obla Da, Mother Nature's Son, Helter Skelter, Savoy Truffle. And that's like not even half of the album. It is so good. I think this is some of the best of the Beatles, all in 30 songs in a very minimalistic, nice album. It is insane. Spiritual revelation. There's a reason why it's up there. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yellow Submarine. This is a very interesting one, considering Yellow Submarine was on a previous album, I think, if I remember correctly. And they did this out of contractual obligations because they had to. They didn't want to. And you can kind of tell. It was also the soundtrack of the movie Yellow Submarine, the animated one that I watched for about 10 minutes, and I felt like I had a fever, and so I stopped watching it. It has 6 songs of their own on the album, and the rest is orchestrations by George Martin, their producer. Was he the producer or the manager? He was a very respected man that helped out the Beatles a lot. He was the unofficial 5th Beatle, basically. But my favorites of the songs on it are Hey Bulldog and All You Need Is Love. Hey Bulldog is a crazy good song. It is definitely the highlight on the album. Number 2 in the US, number 3 in the UK. It wasn't received super well. I think it's a solid album. The songs that they have on there, like the Beatles songs they have on there, are good, are really good, with the highlights obviously being Hey Bulldog. But compared to the others, it's like, well, they have more music, and it's like, it's just a strange thing. It came from contractual obligations. A very special case. It's solid, but I wouldn't call it the best of all time. And it goes without saying, Abbey Road. Just Abbey Road. Tensions were the highest they've ever been when they were all in the studio together, or when they were all in the band. But in studio, they were stronger than ever. And surprisingly, less than a month later, John just leaves the band. In total, this was actually the last time they were ever all in the studio together, which is crazy. It's funny to see, just going through all of the history, going through all of this in like a couple days or so, just to go through this journey all over again. Just in 7 or 8 years, they go from being these Beatles that are just here, all in EMI Studios, what's going on, to them just leaving, just having tensions and just breaking apart. It's a crazy history, and if you have time to read up on it, I really would. It's crazy. This album was number one literally everywhere. Like I looked it up, and looking it up, and with the book resources that I do have, it was number one like everywhere except Japan. For some reason, it was like number 3 or something. I don't know what's going on in Japan in 1968, 68, 69. Personally, I think this is probably the most famous album cover, if not probably the most famous album of all time. And I might go so far as to say, and I will say it, it is the best album of all time, I think. Though Rolling Stone said Sgt. Pepper, which agreed, it's a fantastic, important album. But I think Abbey Road is the best, probably the best and most important album of all time. The B-side of Abbey Road is probably one of my favorites of all time, just ever. It's just, this is the best of the Beatles, I think. Though I think the White Album was fantastic, I think this is probably the best of the Beatles. I think The End, part of that little like on the B-side with Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, The End, You Never Give Your Money, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Sun King, all of these ones. But I think The End is probably one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written. And let me tell you why. Because just the lyrics at the very end, they saying, Paul McCartney writing, "The love you take is equal to the love you make," with just these beautiful orchestrations behind it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Not only is it so true, but it is beautiful. I even get a little wispies thinking about the song. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. This album, it makes me emotional. Let It Be, the final album that came out in 1970, I think. This was actually recorded before Abbey Road, but came out later. To give you perspective how much later it came out, Paul already came out with his first solo album. Maybe I'm Amazed. I think that's the first album that he came out with. But as I've read up, people were actually very disappointed in this album after Abbey Road, like the masterpiece, the absolute godsend that was Abbey Road. Then they came out with this, and they're like, kind of disappointed. Though I don't think there's much to be disappointed about. Though it's not as good as Abbey Road, I think it's still good with songs like I've Got a Feeling, The Long and Winding Road, probably one of the greatest songs of all time, and Two of Us. Other ones, notable ones, Dig a Pony and I Me Mine. It's a great album. It's great. I would put it, I'd put it there. It's amazing. Overall, great album. Overall, just a fantastic band. Probably the greatest band of all time. I will go that far. And honestly, I think that's my final rankings. I think that's it. There's not much else I have to say about this, but just thank you to the Beatles. Thank you to you for watching. The Beatles are a very important band to me and a very important band to music and history in general. So I'm glad I got to relive going through talking about all the Beatles stuff that I have and know and have gone through, and my obsession for 2.5 years of them being the only group that I listen to. So yeah, this is a wonderful journey, and thank you for joining me on it. And I hope you have a good one. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.